committee. So we've had a proposal for Councillor Ibrahim. Can I have someone second that? Yep. Is that approved? Yep. Thank you. I'd like to invite Councillor Ibrahim to the left-hand chair. Next item, do we have any apologies from members?
We received apologies from Councillors Cosgrove, Gloucester and Shuttleworth. Councillors Williamson and H. Harrison are here to sub.
Thank you. Any urgent matters? Nope. Any declarations of interest from members? Okay. Do we have any public questions tonight?
None received, Chair.
And can I ask if the previous minutes are correct from members? Is that seconded? Yeah. Thank you. Which takes us on to the next item, agenda number 9. 8 and 9, sorry. Sorry, 7 and 8, sorry, I can't count tonight. Just a reminder to all members that we are live streaming, so please be wary of that as well. Thank you. So item number 7 and 8, I'll pass it on to Peter. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. So just on these first two items, which obviously ordinarily we would take separately as they are two separate applications, but just for your awareness tonight, the applicant for these applications has asked for us to defer the applications until the next committee to work through some issues or concerns they have around the conditions and trying to ensure that we're all happy as both applicant and council with those conditions. So when an applicant makes that request, it's fairly normal in terms of it's their application. If they want it deferring and delaying in that respect for more information, then that's quite acceptable. But obviously, because the items are on the agenda, it has to be put to the vote with yourselves. So if someone is agreeable to put that forward as a motion, and that motion to be seconded, after we can take a vote on any deferral of those two applications.
Councillor Woodwine?
I'll move deferral.
Yep.
Happy to second.
All those in favour? Apologies, it has been moved and seconded, Diane.
I wanted to ask a question before you went to that
Right,
point.
okay, I'll allow that then.
Thank you. Just why is it? Can we ask why it's going? They want to defer it because I mean I don't come from that area, but I know this application has been going for some time, and I just wonder why we're at this stage where right, okay, we need a deferral because we haven't done this or we haven't done that, or is it just a few little minor things, not anything big? Thank you.
Exactly.
Yep, Chair.
Exactly. It is relatively minor things, but it's to do with the conditions and particularly the kind of conditions that we have that are pre-commencement conditions that are, you know, that they want to work through some of those things with us as officers before it comes back to committee.
Any further questions from members before we move on? No. So it has been moved and seconded. Is that all in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'd also like to say thank you to the speakers that made the effort to come down tonight, and hopefully, you know, it's not been too much of a wasted journey. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9. I'll pass it over to the officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application relates to land off Huddersfield Road, Diggle. It's before the committee as it's a major development. It's for the erection of 64 dwellings, 6 apartments and the associated access points. This slide outlines the area edged red. As you can see, the edge red is split in two. It's split in two by the access road to the new, reasonably new, Saddleworth School. The overall area of both sites together is 3.24 hectares. If I just move on one more slide, it gives slightly more context to an aerial image. As you can see there on the right hand side of the screen is Saddleworth School, and between Saddleworth School and the two parcels of land is the Diggle Brook. The land slopes down from Huddersfield Road to the brook, and at the front of the school there is, in this area here, just directly underneath where it says Sorrow School, is a listed building, which is the Dogcross Works office. Moving on. These two images provide sort of wide angles of both the parcels. The top image is the northern parcel, and the bottom image is the southern parcel of the site. Since the previous application, which some of the councillors here will remember from the January 2022 committee, some trees on site have been removed in the sort of forward areas here that you can see on the top image. Just going forward is some more site images just to give you some more context of the junction with the school, and the bottom image there provides some context of the school access road. This is the amended layout. As said before, it will provide 64 dwellings and 6 apartments. The main differences between the previous extant permission, which was for 77 total units, is a marginal reduction in the overall number, and the addition of a new access point, which is on the left hand side of your screen here, just which you can see by my cursor if everyone can see that. That is a new access point off Huddersfield Road, with the access which was original from the previous extent permission, which is from the school access road for the southern parcel, still being retained, but only for a parking court for the terrace houses which front onto Huddersfield Road on the southern element. Overall, the design maintains the 8-metre buffer required in terms of the Diggle Brook at the bottom of the site, and in this area here on the top right of our screen here, but which is the northeast corner, this is the apartment block, which is the key difference. Previously there was no apartments. Overall on site there are 9 different house types plus the apartment block, and these slides here just give you a taste for what they look like. There's a few different slides, so I'll pause on each. The ones there at the top of the screen show the 2 different sizes of terrace blocks. There's a block of 3 and then 3 blocks of 4. And then the bottom right of this slide shows you the appearance of the apartment block. The application is before you with a recommendation of approval. This is subject to the conditions both listed in the original report and some additional conditions listed in the late list, and some amended conditions that are also in the late list. The application is also recommended subject to a Section 106 agreement, which will relate to the provision of 12.86% on-site affordable homes, the financial contribution of £365,736.80 of off-site open space enhancements, which are listed in the report and do directly relate to the previously approved scheme, and a financial contribution for the loss of ground nesting birds, which is also in the previous application, Section 106. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I now open the floor up to members to ask questions. Oh, sorry, apologies. We have one speaker, Mr. Bob May. Thank you. You'll have 3 minutes, and before 30 seconds is up, the clerk will let you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening. My name is Bob May. I'm a director of Ryan and May with the agents on behalf of the applicants who are Red Row Homes. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity just to say a few words in support of this application. Just to outline some of what we see as the very clear benefits of this high quality scheme. I haven't had the benefit of seeing the late list information, so I just want to make clear, if it's not already clear to you, that a couple of things in the report have been addressed. One of those is to do with the materials. We have submitted natural stone samples which have been agreed, and those will be conditioned. So the references in the report have been addressed, and that is now natural stone. And similarly, anything within the report that to do with tweaks to highways layouts have all been fully comprehensively addressed, and details have been submitted to your officers and agreed. This is a very important scheme for Redrow. They are very keen to begin implementation as quickly as possible. It's not important just to Redrow, it's also important, I would submit, to the authority as well. It will deliver much needed market housing and as well as affordable housing, and make a contribution to your housing land supply, which is currently below the 5 years required. Now, helpfully on page 30 of your report, members will note that the proposal will deliver a greater number of affordable units, a greater percentage of affordable units, and a greater floor area of affordable units than the previously approved permission. And the concern of Saddleworth Parish Council over what they regard to be the loss of two-bed units within the affordable mix needs to be seen in the context of a scheme that will provide an improved affordable housing offer overall and will directly meet the wider housing needs of the borough. So in addition to housing delivery at a time of an ongoing crisis, the proposal secures a substantial financial contribution to the provision of off-site public open space, which will enhance existing open space in the local area. By doing this, the old existing play areas will be replaced at Sunfield Avenue and Ward Lane. Substantial improvements will be made at the Diggle Fields Adventure Play Trail, and improvement works will be carried out at Diggle Pond. As well as these important off-site enhancements, the development, as with all Redrow developments, will provide the very highest quality landscaping as an integral feature of the layout. So thank you for your time. It's 18 months since you first considered an application for 70 units. Our application has been with you for 10, and we are very keen to make progress as soon as we can sign the 106. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. May. Does any members have any questions for the agent? Yep, Councillor Harkness.
Can I ask how many of the houses are now two-bedroom?
We've got a housing mix in your report. If you turn to page, I was going to say page 30. That's the proposal on the floor space, isn't it? On there. I beg your pardon.
It's section 4 in the proposal. There's a breakdown across the two sites. To answer the question, there isn't any two-bed only units. However, there are a number of three-bed units on both parcels, and obviously the area where there's 6 apartments, they are one-bed apartments.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, there it is.
Councillor Davis.
Thanks, Chair. The usual thing on these developments, especially with flats, is the room sizes. Are they all up to the standards, the required standards that are? Yeah.
Yes, they are. Both in terms of national standards and building regulation standards, so it's all compliant.
Any further questions for the agent? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the officers? Councillor Lancaster.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I ask, please, I appreciate that it was a different application, but it was on the same site. So there's been, I believe, 15 resident objections to this application, but I'd appreciate for context in the discussions of members, can we confirm how many resident objections there were to the previous applications on this site? Because I do think it's relevant. Lots of residents don't repeat the same objections to a revised application.
Okay, I'll bring that to the officer. Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't have access to that information right now, but Peter is looking it up, so hopefully in a minute we'll be able to provide it. Thanks. Do you want the number, Peter?
Whilst we're waiting on that answer, is there any... Yep, Councillor Harkness.
Yeah, I want to make a few comments, and then I've got a question as well. The fact there's now no two-bedroom units on there. Now, in Saddleworth, it's very difficult for people to get on the property ladder, and affordable housing is a big issue. And the fact that there is no two-bedroom houses on here, all right, there might be some 3 and 4, on which, no, that's made it easy for those, but it's not helping the affordable housing situation in Saddleworth, this development at all. And that is one of my concerns, and it is a concern of the Parish Council, who looked at it in quite a lot of detail. So that is something that I'm concerned about. I'm also concerned about, on on number, on 16, on the conditions, about the construction management plan, and it's around how that's going to be managed during school hours, because Saddleworth, in Diggle, they've obviously got the Saddleworth School, which is a big change to the Diggle in recent years, and now we're going to have, if this was passed, all these houses at the front, which I do feel is going to have an impact on the traffic around the area, as a lot of residents have said. But how are we going to ensure that access is available during the school, to the school site during these times? And the final point is around the 106 money. And if you know, if this was minded to be, if this was going to be approved, which I'm not necessarily saying I'm in favour of, but if it was, then the condition around the 106 money, which is quite a bit amount, could there be something specific around how that could be spent using to develop the clock tower behind the site, which hasn't got, you know, which is, you know, could be used for community use. Is that a possibility to have that as more specific on the conditions?
Thank you. I'll pass on to the highways. Yeah.
So we're taking the most important question first, the highway question. So the condition for the construction management plan is the ideal opportunity, and the reason that it's on, for us to control traffic during school pick-up and drop-off times. They won't be permitted to make deliveries or carry out heavy movement of heavy plant during those times.
In regards to your question of the public open space funding, sadly, public open space funding is purely to be based on that spend. Obviously, that site, whilst it is an asset and whilst it does require much needed funding to be improved and used well, sadly, it's not a public open space, so we couldn't do. That's what I can say.
I'll just respond on to you. Yes. I'll just bring it back to Peter in terms of your question. Thank you.
I can't find the actual quickly the actual committee report, but in terms of how many comments were made online to that application, it was 74 public comments.
I'll come back to you, Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Shawbakta. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a bit of clarification on Section 106.
So can you just speak up? We can't quite hear you.
A bit of clarification on Section 106. Is it purely for open spaces, or can it be used for other aspects as well? And then...
So you, Chair, sorry.
Yep.
So yeah, in terms of Section 106 agreements, how they work is that they're bespoke to every different application. So in this case, there's a need for affordable housing, there's a need for public open space, and there's a need to mitigate for habitat impact. So in this particular instance, on this application, the Section 106 will cover those three aspects. Obviously, the affordable housing is provided on site anyway, so it's not a financial contribution that we receive. But there will be a financial contribution towards public open space and towards the off-site habitat enhancement as mitigation for the habitat impact on site. So they have to be spent on those things. That's the way Section 106s work in terms of when you come to this point, because they're about addressing an issue that has arisen on that particular site that has to be addressed to make the development acceptable in planning terms. So to go back to Councillor Hartness's question as an example, we couldn't then just spend it on something else like the clock tower because we want to. It has to be on the issue, the matter that had to be addressed through the application. Does that make sense?
So can you just put your mic on, please? Yeah.
It doesn't, and it doesn't to me personally, because obviously there are implications to the site, but obviously the clock tower is just literally adjacent to it, and for the wider community it probably has a greater value in terms of restoring that particular sort of tower itself. And then my other sort of issue that I wanted to raise was around obviously the public highway, and I can remember the Saddleworth school application that we had in the past, and that raised a lot of issues around sort of traffic issues basically, and now we're getting 64 houses adjacent to it, and then, like Councillor Harkness has already raised, it's going to increase that traffic flow. And are we confident that that traffic flow is going to be properly managed and it's not going to have a great adverse effect on the wider area?
Thank you. I'll pass it over to Wendy to address the highways issue.
Well, in a moment, just if you don't mind, so just to, before Wendy comes in, on the point, just to clarify on the point of the Section 106, I mean, it can be a perception that Section 106 is about getting a community benefit out of a scheme. That's not what it's really about. That can happen in terms of that. There is a community benefit for spending that money, but the reason you have it is to offset the harm or the impact that the development is having. So because the harm and the impact in this case is around, you need more open space because you're providing more housing, you need to address the habitat matters. That's what the money has to be spent on. It's not just a fund that can be spent on any community benefit. I think the other factor in terms of on the highways, but generally on this application before Wendy comes in, is just to bear in mind with this application is that obviously because we have to recognise that is what we call a fallback position. You know, Red Row Homes or any other person who bought this site could go ahead and implement that existing permission if they wanted to, because it's there. So what we're looking at here is this application making a substantial harmful impact that the last application wasn't, because we've already given permission for this site to be developed for housing, and that's factored in terms of the highways, but I'll let Wendy explain that better than I can.
Okay. So the predicted additional traffic just from the development, so I'll take it in two parts. I'll talk about the school and I'll talk about the development. Predicted are an additional 48 manoeuvres during the morning peak hour and an additional 41 during the peak hour, the afternoon peak hour, sorry. So that's overall, which isn't a lot. We all think that everyone's going out at 8 o'clock and there'll be 100 cars on the road, and that just doesn't happen. The measures, the mitigation measures that were introduced as part of Saddleworth School were so robust that even though I've just said those figures are low, they won't have any impact on the overall efficiency of the network. And we made sure, and the applicant will testify to this, and this is one of the reasons we're looking at it tonight. We made absolutely certain that all the figures were up to date, and there was a road safety audit done, because top in my mind is we've still got these school children to, I've got to consider the safety of the children actually walking to school. So I'm absolutely confident that the additional traffic won't have a major impact, and certainly not enough to recommend refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Davis and Councillor Lancaster. Yeah.
No, it's fine, Chair. It was about the 106, and Councillor Akhtar asked virtually what I was going to ask.
Thank you for keeping it short, Councillor Lancaster.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm glad that Councillor Harkness brought up the office building, actually, because it's reminded me of the discussions we had last time. Now, you'll have to excuse me referring back to the last planning meeting, but it does have relevance because, of course, it's on the same site. We had a very eloquent resident speaker then speak about the listed heritage aspect of the Loomworks office building and how the visual amenity aspect of its relationship with other listed buildings in the immediate vicinity, including on the opposite side of Huddersfield Road, so in terms of restricting the view of that listed building and its importance in a visual amenity.
The harm has been established by the previous application with the school at the back, and then obviously the fallback position in terms of the position of the development in front of it, which is the 77 houses. The same still applies here, that by virtue of there being a set off from the access road to the school, it still provides a view of that listed structure for the benefit of the people of Oldham to see it, and it is accessible in terms of that there's a public footway that runs down the school access road. There aren't gates until significantly closer. So it's the same consideration in terms of the overall impact to the extent permission, because a view is still maintained by virtue of the access road being there.
Thank you. Councillor Harkness.
Yes, so on the heritage, I would argue that this has a bigger impact on that building than even maybe the school does. I'm still not convinced. I mean, you mentioned obviously that the site has got affordable housing. Well, I've already mentioned that the 2-bedroom houses, there isn't any, and I don't think there's a significant amount. And as the parish council have said, they've recommended refusal on the grounds that it was a departure from the policy. So I would like to propose refusal of the application on the basis that there isn't sufficient affordable housing on there and the impact on the setting of the heritage building.
So, Matthew, did you want to come in on that? Before we take the vote, officer.
Just so the committee is aware that it's clearly stated in the report that in regards our requirement for affordable homes, the application not only meets, it exceeds the national required policy. So in that regard, there are, in my professional opinion, no grounds that you could refuse this application on the fact that it doesn't provide sufficient affordable homes, because it meets the national policy. It's clearly outlined that not only does it meet that, it also beats the extant permission, and that's the table that you can find in section, I think it's 10, sorry, section 10, and the table is clearly stated in its paragraph 10.2. Thank you.
Councillor Lancaster.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to say I support the reasons given for refusal, and I'd like to add as well that I'm sorry, Wendy, because I know we've had this conversation 18 months ago, but I can't accept that a development of that size doesn't have a negative highways impact, particularly immediately surrounding an access point to the school as well. So if I could add as a reason refusal on the highways grounds as well. Thank you.
Before we move on to a vote on this, can I bring in Peter?
So first of all, just a matter of process. Obviously, Councillor Harkness has proposed a motion. It's been seconded. Councillor Lancaster, you've asked for an additional reason. So Councillor Harkness, you'll need to agree to that, and again, it'll have to be seconded. But just as a matter of process. But I think, again, just to, maybe that Alan wants to come in as well before you vote on this, just to be very clear, from our point of view as officers on this, the reasons you're proposing, both the affordable housing and the transport impacts, they have been addressed in the previous application. And this application, certainly in terms of the affordable housing, is offering a better amount of affordable housing, a higher percentage provision and a higher floor space provision. In terms of highways, we've already explained that we're not saying there's not a highways impact, we're saying that highways impact can be managed, as it was with the previous permission. And I think there was 46 movements, you said, Wendy, before, in the peak times? 48, so in a peak hour. So that's not even one car per minute. And that, I mean, that's why we stress that the number might sound big, but in reality, when you apply it, it's not big, because one extra car a minute is not going to cause queues, is not going to cause congestion or anything like that. So I think we have to make clear before you vote on this motion that we would have great concern around any recommendation to refuse this application. I think we have to recognise the risks at appeal if the applicant chose to appeal. They would, in my professional view, they would have a very good chance of that, and there would be a significant risk of costs awarded against the council in that situation as well, because there is an extant permission, and this permission is certainly no worse than that permission. So I don't know if Alan wants to come in at all as well.
Yeah, I'll bring Alan in, and then did you, Sugars, sorry. Did you want to come in with a question, or did you want to second the motion? Sorry, can you just put your mic on, Diane? Thank you.
So you said in reality 48 movements AM 41 is not much, but when you look at the area that it is, it does become a lot, and I think that's what parish council and also the Saddleworth councillors that are in the room tonight are worried about. I wanted to talk about the 2-bedroom properties. And you say that there's like, oh, you know, we've got 3 and we've got 1, but there are people that just want 2-bedroom properties. So I'm just slightly perturbed that that has been removed. Was that, if I got it right, was that removed from the previous application, or were 2-bedroom properties not on there in the first place? Just so I'm clear, thank you.
I'll bring it to the officer. Yeah.
So in the previous permission, there were 17 2-bed dwellings on the site. Sorry, but if I can add, but there were no 1-bed facility on the previous application.
Councillor Akhtar?
I just want a couple of clarifications. Peter's mentioned the fact that there's a previous application. I wasn't at that particular meeting. So was that particular application approved, or was it just considered and then it has been approved? Right, okay. And then obviously in terms of Councillor Harkness's objections in terms of affordable units, is your reason for number of affordable units, or are you specifically saying there's not enough 2-bed units? Because I just need a clarification on that.
I'll ask Councillor Harkness to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that, you know, the removal of, you know, from the last application, there is, in my view, less affordable housing now. There's no 2-bedrooms at all, and as I said, there was 17 previously. So I don't think, and the parish council also suggests that it doesn't meet, they don't believe that it meets the policy, and that's basically the nutshell. And it's very, you know, affordable housing in Saddleworth is a challenge, you know, and you know, saying, oh, we've got these 3-bedroom houses and so on, but is that affordable?
I'll bring it to Peter to expand and comment on your point. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify one aspect of what you're saying. So when I said there were 17 2-bed homes on the previous application, that's homes full stop, not affordable. So, you know, I think it's that, but that's just to clarify, because you were specifically referring to affordable homes at that point. So I don't have to hand exactly how many of the affordable homes were 2-bed in the previous scheme. But yeah, just to clarify that point.
Thank you. I'll bring Alan in at this stage. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, I'd just like to reiterate the point that was made, as I do on these occasions. If you're going to refuse the application against the officer's recommendation, you need to do so for valid planning reasons, and you need to be aware that in the event of an appeal, you'll be expected to provide evidence to substantiate those reasons for refusal, because if you don't, as you've heard, that's likely to be considered to be unreasonable behaviour, which may lead to an award of costs against the council. Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions? I see Councillor Akhtar followed by Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I move that we approve the application subject to the conditions outlined under the recommendation?
Councillor Akhtar, you jumped the gun. We've had a proposal already, so we just need someone to second, and we'll have to take a vote on that. Has it been seconded? Seconded, right, okay. Councillor Davis, is it a quick question?
Yeah, I'm just a comment really, Chair. I'm a bit concerned where we're heading with this, because it's clear that we're not, you know, I understand the concern. I don't know if your ward councillors in that area are, it's your patch, I don't know, you know it very well, but, so I understand the concerns, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's private land, a private builder, and they do what's the best thing to do, what they think's most marketable. We don't really have that much choice in it, unfortunately. So long as everything's done within the law, then they can do it, and I'm worrying where we're going to go with it if we turn it down.
Thank you. Any final comments from members before we take it to a vote? So before we take it to a vote, can I ask Councillor Harkness to clarify the exact reason for rejection, please, and whether or not it fits in with the material considerations? Thank you.
So as the reason for refusal of the Saddleworth Parish Council, it was the impact on the heritage, on the clock tower, basically. And have I missed one, Luke? Did you add another one?
I'd argue highways safety as well, Madam Chairman. Highways safety, on the basis of the additional generated traffic flow. Sorry, Wendy, don't agree with the assessment.
Again, Peter at this point, thank you.
Just to clarify, so you're not suggesting a reason for refusal on affordable housing as you've been discussing?
Well, I've said that, yeah, so on affordable housing and the fact that, yeah, because, well, affordable in the sense of that, but yeah, I think, you know, yeah, I think that is part of it, yeah, affordable housing and the two-bedroom, as I said there.
Yeah, just to come in, Councillor Harkness, we just need the exact reasons why, because obviously if it does go to appeals, then they will obviously look at the reasons why, so we want to be as specific as possible. So if you want to just succinctly, again, summarise the key points.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, Saddleworth Parish Council's recommended refusal for the following reasons on the grounds that the loss of the two-bedroom homes on the revised plan now doesn't meet the housing need of Oldham Metropolitan Borough Council or Saddleworth Parish Council. So that's part one, okay? Part two is concerns over highway safety, and part three is the impact on the setting of the heritage building.
Thank you. And just to remind you as well, if it does go to appeals, then each point can be separately awarded as well. So I'm minded to ask members to consider that whilst voting as well. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. So all those in favour of refusal of the application? All those in favour? Okay. Sorry, all those against the refusal of the application? Okay, that motion's been dropped. So now I ask, I'll bring in Councillor Akhtar, who's put his hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, obviously, Councillor Pete Davis has already outlined the fact that we do feel for the local councils, but this application has been approved in the past, so therefore I would like to move that we approve it, subject to the recommendations and the conditions outlined under section 24.
And the late information, is that correct, yeah? Yeah. Did you have a question, Councillor Davis?
Yeah, I'll just second that one if I can do.
Okay, thank you. So we've had it moved and seconded. All those in favour of the application as per the conditions and the late list requirements? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Can you just confirm that's been passed, approved? Yes. That's been approved.
Chair has said is for the conversion of an existing floodlit grass pitch for a 3G floodlit pitch, the provision of additional on-site parking and improvements to the fencing and landscaping on site. This slide shows the application site. In the centre there you can see the pitch laid out. To the left is Broadway. The site is accessed at the south of the site off Andrew Street, and adjacent is Cypress Avenue along this side. Just to give some further context, there is an aerial image again. This is the existing, on the right hand side of the image there between Cypress Street and the pitch is the existing area of parking, which is not particularly formalised. The grass pitch and the periphery, the whole area is encased with perimeter fencing as it is used as a private football club. These images that you can see here show the Andrew Street elevation, which is the clubhouse, and the top image is the existing vehicle access and the pedestrian access, which is to be maintained, and the image at the bottom of the screen shows the existing trees along the Andrew Street elevation. These images are taken from Broadway and show that there is a set off from Broadway. The existing fencing and existing mature trees stand between the site and Broadway, and then at the top end of the site it is bounded by a car sales area. Previously was a motorbike place, if anyone remembers it. This slide shows the overall site layout. As you can see, the parking is formalised by the application and extended up and into the sort of northern area of the site. To the left of that, the northwest of the site, you can see that these circles denote the sort of additional landscaping that's going to take place on site as part of the works. The area in green is the pitch, and the different markings there show that the additional uses that come from creating these artificial pitches, that there's going to be a community benefit overall, which is outlined in the report. Because they're able to be used all year round, the club is able then to push forward and bring more people in. And as part of the conditions, you'll see that Sports England have requested that there's a community basis condition which requires a fair usage and fair price for community-based projects. This slide shows the additional fencing that'll come forward as part of it. Some of it, the additional height ones, are obviously to sort of protect the areas here from the ball leaving the ground. Overall, obviously, the top end here is a bit different because the site extends further on. Finally, this just shows some of the levels on site. Because the site does pick up into that northern corner, this is what is shown here. With that, this is the pitch at a lower level and the sort of picked up area there to where the new parking will be. The application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed in the report. There is nothing on the late list. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers, so I'll open up the floor to members to ask questions. Thank you. No questions? Okay, I move to discuss and debate it. No? Any comments? No? Can I ask that someone moves for approval of the item? Do you have a question, Councillor Akhtar?
No, I don't have any questions or comments, just moving it for approval.
Anyone second that? Yeah, Councillor Ibrahim, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That passes. Thank you. Item number 11, erection of a single-storey dwelling with parking and associated external works in Waterhead. Thank you. I'll pass it over to the officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this planning application at 250 to 252 Huddersfield Road in Oldham. This is a site that's located on the south side of Huddersfield Road, as you'll see from the location plan in front of you on the screen. And for those familiar with it, it does adjoin or is immediately alongside the car park serving the adjacent Asda supermarket. More specifically, as you'll see from the plan, is the red area which is hatched, which shows the actual location plan itself, and the blue line you can see on that drawing simply indicates additional land that's owned by the applicant. So the public house in blue, that is the Farmer's Boy Public House, but the site itself in red is simply an open piece of land currently vacant. The application itself is seeking the erection of a single-storey dwelling and associated works, and you'll see from some of the slides I'll put on, you'll see the site plan and the layout and the design, and the associated works with that, which include the parking provision, external works, including access from adjacent to Spring Street. Importantly, I've just explained the reason for this application being brought to committee. It's obviously a minor category type of application that would ordinarily be delegated to officers, but the applicant is understood to be a direct relation to Councillor Mushtaq, which is part of our constitution requires, for transparency purposes, such applications require a committee decision. So just got some pictures here to show the context of the site. So this is taken from the vehicular access to the Asda supermarket, and behind the totem sign with the Asda signage is the pub. and it is at the back of that, behind the concrete panel fencing there, that is the application site itself. So it's got some photographs here that show the site a bit more clearly, including the access from the rear. And here we've got the proposed floor plan showing it. It is a single-storey building, so it's a bungalow. We've got a roof plan there, and these are the elevations that show what the building would look like in terms of its design, and an overall site plan showing its relationship to the public house at the bottom of that image. So I'll just leave the satellite view on, just to give a context while I keep talking. One important thing to note, as you'll see in the report, is planning permission has previously been granted for a bungalow on this site in 2015. So that is in itself a material consideration as part of the planning history of the site. Also, importantly, that permission has lapsed. It would have been granted permission for 3 years. No, wasn't implemented, so it ceases to exist, in brief. Since that time, planning permission has more recently been granted to convert the public house, which is the building fronting Huddersfield Road behind the Asda totem sign, to convert that building into an 11-bed house in multiple occupation. And that is relevant with substantial weight as a material planning consideration in the assessment of this current application. So similar to the previous application in 2015, the principle of the development for a dwelling house on that site does remain to be considered acceptable. It's in a highly sustainable location. It ticks a lot of the boxes in terms of the preferred location of new residential development. However, we also have now to consider the relationship between the proposed dwelling and the HMO, and we consider the impact on the occupiers of the HMO caused by the proposed development would be too great to accept. The interface distance would be between 8 and 10 metres, and with the way that the land levels rise to the rear of the site, so the site in question is much higher than the Huddersfield Road level, that simply compounds that impact. So in brief, we are very concerned about the impact of the development on the future occupiers of the HMO, whose bedrooms at ground floor level and first floor level would face this development. So in brief, that impact is considered to be so significant that we are now recommending that the application is refused for that reason. That's the introduction, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I note that there's no speakers or agents tonight, so I open up the floor for members to ask questions. Thank you. Councillor Harkness.
I'll move refusal and given the delegate powers.
Okay. So it's been moved. Does anyone wish to second? Okay, Councillor Williamson. Okay, it's Williamson here. So all those in favour of refusal? I think that's majority. Yep. All those against? Abstentions? That carries. Thank you. Item number 12, which is removal of a condition. So it's quite simple but quite complicated at the same time. So I will pass it on to our professional officers to clarify what this means. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. This application relates to removal of a condition attached to a planning permission granted back in 1994. It does not include any construction works at all, and it's been brought to committee because the original scheme was a major scheme and was determined by the planning committee back then. So on the screen there is the application site edged in red. It was the former Clarksfield house. So the scheme was for the demolition of the house and the erection of 12 dwellings as part of the phase 1 of the overall development. So when the permission was granted, a condition was attached to the permission taking away permitted development rights relating to extensions, outbuildings, and other alterations to the houses. So on the screen there is just at the central part of the screen there is what the area looks like now following the development. So 12 houses in all. And then so the next slide just shows what Glenfield Close looks like at the moment. Just that's taken from the entrance into Glenfield Close. So those are the 12 houses on site. And then the next slide just shows precisely what the condition attached was. So it's condition 6 of planning permission PA 03261094. So in assessing an application of this nature, the key issues to focus on would be, 1, the reason for attaching the condition to the permission, and 2, whether the condition actually satisfies statutory requirements. So in this case, the reason for the condition as stated there would relate to the protection of the character of the area and the protection of the amenity of neighbors. So, but since the permission was granted, the government has published the NPPF, which sets out guidance relating to conditions, when conditions can be attached to permission, and criteria that conditions must meet for them to be actually valid. So accordingly, paragraph 56 of the NPPF sets out the following as what we commonly refer in planning to as the tests for conditions, and these include the fact that, 1, the condition must be precise, it must be necessary, it must be relevant to planning, it must be enforceable and reasonable. So in assessing this application, one needs to determine if the condition actually meets all these tests. And taking the tests in turn, if we start with the first one, precise, we will argue that in this case, the condition is not precise, it's too general, it's a blanket condition on the overall development. Going back to the reason is to protect the character of the area. And then the argument is that any extension would have the same impact on the character of the area as any other extension, but that cannot be the case because the sites making up the overall development are not exactly the same in context. So what development you have on one does not necessarily would not necessarily lead to the same impact as any other. So in this case, the conclusion is that the condition is not precise enough as to warrant being attached to the permission. Similarly, in assessing the impact on the amenity of neighbors, it's not exactly going to be possible to say that the impact of one extension on a neighbor would be similar or the same as the impact of another extension at all on any other neighbor. So in this case, the argument is that that condition does not pass that test. Then the next one is the condition necessary. it probably was when the permission was granted, but over time, all those houses there, almost all the houses have been extended one way or the other. And the condition was to actually restrict extension and erection of outbuildings. So if over 50% of the houses have been extended, then it's not reasonable to argue now that the condition is still necessary. So the condition does not meet that test currently. The next one is the condition relevant. Yeah, maybe it was back then. Is the condition enforceable? Yes, it is enforceable. And then the last one is that the condition has to be reasonable. Again, based on the planning history there, it's no longer reasonable to hold on to this condition because the purpose has more or less been defeated. Almost all the houses have been extended, and there is therefore no point insisting that there has to be a condition restricting extension to the houses on site. So, on the basis of this, the conclusion is that the condition does not meet all statutory requirements anymore, and therefore the recommendation is for the application for the removal of the condition to be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. There's no speakers on this, so I'll open it up for discussion or comments or questions to the officers. No comments? No. Would anyone like to move and second the motion?
Chair,
Yep, Councillor Williamson and Councillor Akhtar, thank you. All those in favour of removal of the condition? Yep. Any against? Abstentions? No, that carries. Thank you. And final item 13, appeals update. Are there any questions regarding the appeals? Are members happy to note it? Yep. Thank you. That concludes, sorry? Did you say no? Okay, that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you, members. Thank you.